Okay, well, last time we stopped at the second case of the non-tariff barriers and its impacts on the welfare of the countries. Okay, so I hope that you can understand this one already. Okay, and then today we will continue the rest. So we have 4 more to go. Let's start from the first one here, or the third case in these chapters. In this case, the third case is orderly marketing agreement. The orderly marketing agreement is like you ask someone to do something for you, okay? Or you ask for volunteers, okay? So if you want to limit the trade, not only you limit by import industry, you can limit the export as well. Okay, you can limit your export industry, not allow your country to export. So in this case, normally we can understand this case as export quota. Okay, the first 2 cases that we learned before, we learned about the import quota, right? In the first 2 cases, but in these cases, we will look in the export quota instead. And this one is another tool for restrict your trade. You may ask me that why we need to limit our export. It may not good for your countries, right? If you limit your export, it means you lose a lot of money by limiting that industry. But sometimes you need to limit it. Why is that? The first one is what? You limit it in order to reserve some of some of the product that you don't have enough. Okay, for example, if you face with the disaster in your countries, or you have the limited supply in your countries, and your country need that products, so you need to limit the export. Okay, if your country don't have enough to consume, you have to limit it for your people. Okay, so this is the purpose of limiting the export products. Another reason is if you limit the number of export today, okay, so it means another country cannot export your product, right? They cannot import your products. So when they cannot import your products, so it means you don't have enough money, right? Your money will drop down, and when your money drop down, you will not have money to buy another product else. So this is another way to limit your trade as well. Okay, so let me summarize here. Okay, you can look at here. Okay, you can look at here, but let me summarize in here for you. So for the first purpose is for reserve product for your people. When you face with the severe event like disaster, like we limit the number of the vaccine, for example. If your country in China, you can produce a lot of vaccine, and the government may limit the number of export, the number of vaccine export to another country for your people first, like that. Okay, reserve the product for your people first. And the second, limit the country income. It sound not make sense, but it's true here. Limit the country income, right? When you limit your export, your income is drop down, and when your income is drop down, you cannot import. Your country cannot import. So this is two purpose of limiting the export products, to limit your income and then to limit your import in further. So this is the another tool for limit the trade. Okay, limit the trade here. Okay. Now, this theory mentioned that voluntary export quota tend to have identical economic effects to equivalent to import quota. So it means if you want to investigate the impact of this policy, it's exactly the same as the import quota. So you have to go back here, this one. Okay, if you want to analyze the effects of the export quota, you go here. You can use this graph to explain. But if your nation is exporting nation, you cannot use that graph. You cannot use the first case to analyze the effects. Okay? Thus, in these cases, I will focus only the exporting nations. Okay? But for importing nation, you can go back to look at the first case. Okay? So in this case, I would like to know that if you want to limit the export, okay, if you want to limit the export, so if the country or if the company want to export the products, it means you have to buy the license from the government. Okay, and this is the note. Okay, so if any firms or any that industry want to export, you need to buy the license. So this is the way that the country limit the export. You have to ask permission and buy the license. If you don't buy the license or ask permission, you cannot export. So this is the implementations of this case, okay, of this case. So now, let me summarize here the welfare effects. Okay, so based on as I told you here, in this case, the welfare effects of this case is different for importing nations and exporting nations. If you are importing nation, you go to look at the import quota effects. But here, if you want to look at the import nation, so it will be the next slide. Okay, so and then I will explain you here, okay, for clarify everything here. Okay. Okay, let make a note, okay, to clarify everything. Okay, next, how the export quota affects to the exporting nation. Okay, let me a note here. Only for exporting nations. Okay, how it affects. Okay, how it affects. Okay, we will do the same. Everything exactly the same as before. At the first step, at point E, this is step 1 again. At point E is before trade or autarky stage. So this box is step 1, autarky stage. And you can see where is the welfare, right? The first step that you have to do, find the welfare first. And where is the welfare? It's here. You don't need to draw it, okay? You are not need to draw it. Here, this is the welfare of the economy before they trade. Okay, no need to draw it. Okay, I make the note in the right hand side for you already. Okay, and next, then the country trade, right? Because of this country is the exporting nation, so they are good or specialized in export industry, right? So when they are specialized in export industry, so what happens? The supply chain to SFT. Okay, it differs from the previous case. In the previous case, when the country import the product, the supply, the free trade is here, right? This is the supply of free trade. When country trade with the world, right? When they trade with the world, the supply is at FT below the equilibrium point. But here, this is different because this is the exporting nation. They are good in export. So they will export a lot of product and gain a lot of money. So it means the supply go to the second state here. Okay, this is the difference between this graph and the previous graph. Okay, this is the big difference here. The supply not go below but go above the equilibrium point because they are the exporting nations. And then what happened here? You can see because of the price of the world change from A to K. So the world price equal to K is more expensive than the domestic price. So this is why they want or willing to export their products outside to get more money from A to K. So where is the welfare here? So again, we will have two welfare here, consumer and producer again. And where is the consumer here? The consumer here should be the price move to K. So this is the consumer surplus, right? And where is the producer surplus? The price move to K, right? Producer surplus is the price above the willingness to sell. And where is the willingness to sell? The willingness to sell is SD, right? SD is willingness to sell. So it means this line is willingness to sell. And where is the price? It's K. So the price is K here. So it means this is the producer surplus. Okay. Try to look at the definitions of the welfare. Then you can draw it by looking at the definitions. It's really important. Okay, very important. The definition is very important. The area above the willingness to pay. Okay, the area that the price above willingness to sell, willingness to sell is the producer surplus, and the price below the willingness to pay is consumer surplus. So I draw the graph according to the definitions of consumer surplus and producer surplus. Okay, now let's come back here. This is the welfare in the step 2. Now we go to the step 3. The step 3 is what? Voluntary export quota. Now the country use export quota. So when the country use the export quota, so what happened here? The supply shift down from SFT to SVER. Limit the supply, right? The country will limit the supply now. Okay, so the supply dropped down. So when the supply dropped down, so what happened to the price? Okay, what happened to the price of the domestic country? The supply dropped down, so it make the price drop down in the domestic country. Okay, here because of government want to help their consumer, right? They want to help their consumer. So the price dropped down is because of SVER drop down here to the third step. So here the price dropped down from K to L. And next, what happened to the quantities? Before that, when the country engage with the world at the price equal to K, the demand equal to 1, and the supply equal to 10 at the free trade. Then the country use the limitation of the export. So the number of the supply will be limited to from 10 back to X. Okay, the number of export change from 10 to X. So here, limit the export. Okay. Okay, now it's dropped down. Okay, it's dropped already from 10 to X. Okay. And next, okay, everyone, and next, in the consumer side, when the price drop down and there are more product arrival in their countries, so the consumer move up from 1 to 2. Consumer increase, right? Consumer consume more from 1 to 2 when the price equal to L. Okay, so now the country faced with the new equilibrium point, that is consumer will consume two products and seller will sell the producer will sell egg products. Okay, will sell egg product. Okay, so it means what happened here? Consumer will consume only two. Producer will sell egg. So it means this gap from 2 to egg is export, right? From 2 to egg is the export. So it means the country can restrict the number of export equal to 6, right? Equal to 6 here. Sorry, in order to, I afraid that you may confuse. So let me change this one. Okay, everyone, let me change this one. Just 1 minute, everyone. ครับผมอ๋อครับผมครับบ้าน129ข้อ250ใช่ไหมครับผมนี่ผมผมอยู่ที่ไหนวิลล่านะครับน่าจะผิดใช่ไหมอันนี้ผู้รับซื้อชื่ออะไรครับผมไม่ใช่ครับผมวอลคงครับครับผมครับสวัสดีครับ Okay, sorry, let's come back here. Okay, so change limit export to limit production instead. Okay, limit. So before that, they produce 10, right? But later they produce 8. And then you see the number export restrict to 6. Consumer consume 2, producer produce 8. So the total export equal to 6. But let's compare to the second case. If the country open more economy at the free trade, normally country will produce 10, right? And consumer will consume 1. So this is the gap of the export. The export here equal to 9. Okay, so how many products that they restrict here? They can restrict 3 units of products, right? They can limit 3 units of products here. Okay, now this is the situation that I want to explain to you. Then we are look at the welfare effects. This is the key point of this graph, the welfare effects. Okay, go to the another graph, everyone. Go to another graph here. I make another graph for you here already. Okay, now this is the producer surplus in the second stage. This is the producer surplus in the second stage. Don't forget, second stage is free trade. Okay, now we will draw the welfare of the third step or voluntary export restrictions. For the producer surplus, okay, from the producer surplus case, the producer surplus will drop down because of this policy, right? The government asked the export industry to drop their export, so it means producer surplus drop down right away. Then what about the consumer surplus? The consumer surplus will be increased. Right? So everyone again, let me highlight the area of the loss first. You will see this area is the producer surplus loss, right? Correct, everyone? Okay. And next, as I have taught you before, this producer surplus loss may not be the real loss. It might be, okay, it might be something else subsidize each area. Okay, there might be another effects that can subsidize this area. Okay, so we go one by one area again. Look at this area. Let's go to look area def KL DG DIG KDGL. Okay, look at the KDGL area. Okay, KDGL. At first, KDGL is producer loss, right? And then KDGL turned out to be consumer gain. So KDGL, nothing happened. Okay, I will delete KDGL out of it. Okay, so I will delete the area KDGL. Okay, so KDGL neutral. Consumer gain minus producer loss. Okay. So this area equal to 0. Nothing happened. Then look at second area, DIG. Okay, DIG. At the area DIG, this is the producer loss, right? Producer loss. But look at here, because of producer loss. But if you look at the consumption changed from 1 to 2. Correct? As I told you before, when the price drop down from K to L, people can consume more this product from 1 to 2. So area DIG is consumption effects. So consumption effects minus producer gain here. Sorry, producer welfare loss here. This area equal to 0. Nothing happened. It's not the loss anymore. Delete. So area DIG is not the loss. It's not the welfare loss because of the consumption effects gain here from 1 to 2. Okay. And next, look at area IJGF. Okay, IJGF, this is the producer loss, right? But the producer loss here is the real loss or not? Not. Why? Because it becomes revenue of the country. Because this country limit the export. So if you want to sell the products, you need to pay for the license. You have to pay the money for export. So when the firm pay the money to the government, so it means the government gain the revenue here. So this area IJF is revenue effects. Okay, so the revenue effect IJF minus producer welfare loss. So this area is neutral, equal to 0 as well, because it's the welfare loss of producer transfer to the government revenue already. Okay. And the last area, JHF. JHF is what? Welfare loss, right? Welfare loss from producer, because this is the producer loss. So JSF, look at here. Before that, at the free trade, the country can produce 10, but now the country can produce only 8 because of this policy. So the production also lost here. Okay. HFJ is the real deadweight loss. This is the real deadweight loss of the country. And don't forget here, because of the products move from 10 to 8, this area is another loss. Okay, H, okay, HFI, okay, F is here. HFI is another loss, but HFI is not the welfare loss. Why? Because HFI is not located in the welfare area. So based on this analysis, we can say that the country faced with the deadweight loss on JAF area when the country used this policy. And not only the deadweight loss, the country also faced with the production loss on HFI area. Okay, so there are 2 loss here. One is welfare loss, one is production loss. But don't forget, in this class, we focus only welfare. So the answer of this graph should be only JHF. Okay, make a note here. Only JHF is the dead weight loss if I ask you that. But if I ask you the total loss, including the real loss and welfare loss, you have to answer JSF plus HFI. This is the total loss, okay? Total loss. Okay, everyone, I'm done now for this case. Are you okay? Okay, no response here. So for other student, okay, are you okay? You can ask me now if you have any problems here. Oh, no question again? Okay, if no questions, okay, I will continue the fourth case. Now I'm done now, okay? So my answer here, if the country use the export quota, is that good? No, it's not good because you face with the dead weight loss at JHF. And not only dead weight loss, you face with the production effect loss as well, okay? So this is not good. But by the way, some country use it. They use it because of they want to help their domestic people when they are lack of the consumptions. Okay, by the way, they have to help. Number 4, domestic content requirement. Okay, the domestic content requirement is what? Okay, look at the first bullet. It is the rule that they require a certain percentage of the product's total value should be produced domestically. So what it mean? It means that this is the rule. This is the requirement that the country asks the foreigner. If you want to export the product to me, you need to use our material. Okay, you need to use some of your production. You need to use our input. Okay, for example, Thailand want to export mobile phone to China, for example. Okay, Thailand want to do that, export mobile phone to China. So China may say, okay, I will use domestic content requirement policy to you. So China said, from now on, you need to use our labor to produce mobile phone. So it means Thailand need to hire the labor from China. Otherwise, China will not buy the mobile phone to you if you not use our labor. This is example. Okay. Any input, you need some of input in your production before you sell the product to me. That is the answer. That is the meaning of domestic content requirement. So the effects of the content requirement is to pressure both domestic and foreign firms that sell product in the home country to use domestic product, for example, worker or capitals. Okay, you need to use it in their production process. Otherwise, I will not buy from you. Okay, so the demand for domestic input will be increased. Okay, so this policy is used to help the input market in your countries. Okay, we need to help the input market, not the output market. Input market is the main target of this policy. This policy often has the effect of forcing lower price of import to include the higher cost of domestic content or domestic component. So that is mean they want to increase the price of their input products. That's all. Okay. To help farmer, for example. Okay. If you want to buy the powder, you need to buy our rice. If you want to buy the car, you need to buy our electronics. You need to buy our some material to build the car, for example. So those input price will be increased for sure. Okay, next, look at the graph. The graph is very simple when compared to another case. Okay, not too complicated here, simple here. Look at here. Now we are focused on these two countries. For example, DA is the demand of Australian people. Okay, DA is the Australian people or Australia, and SJ is the supply from Japan. Suppose Japan want to sell Toyota. Toyota can produce only in Japan, right? And Australia, they cannot produce it. Okay, they may not have the skill to produce Toyota, or they might not have, or they are not allowed to produce Toyota. So it means in Australia, the supply for Toyota in Australia is no. There are no supply of Australian Toyota. Okay, there are no here. Okay, so this is the reason that why there are no supply of Australia here. Okay, they don't have, or they may not have skill. They cannot do whatever, any reasons, but they don't have supply here. So in this case, we are focused only the consumer effects. We are focused only the welfare from consumer side only. Okay, because of these reasons. Okay, look at the demand of Australians Toyota and supply of Japan Toyota. The step one, this is the equilibrium point. Okay, equilibrium point. So it means here this is the free trade. So we jump to the free trade. Okay, we jump to the free trade step right away. So we start on the free trade step. At the free trade step, the supply of Toyota equal to 500 and the price equal to 74,000 US dollar per Toyota per one car, for example. Okay, and next, the government, I mean the Australian government, they want to use domestic content requirement policies. So they use this policy. So what happened to Toyota? It means that Toyota, they need to use the input from Australia. Let's say they need to use labor, right? For example, they used to use labor in Australia. In Australia. So how they do it? They need to import labor from Australia. Yes, they can. They may do like that, but sometimes it costs a lot. So the simplest way for Japanese industry or Japanese firm to solve this problem, they need to move their industry from Japan to Australia. Okay, so we call transplant factory. Okay, so Japan, they can establish a transplant factory in Australia. So the supply will be shift up here to step 3. Okay, or step 2 here. Transplant factory in Australia. they have to move their production from Japan, move to Australia. So when they move to Australia, so what happened to their supply? Their supply shift up along the demand of Australia. Why it shift up? Because of the cost increase, right? The cost of Japanese firm increased right away because they need to move their production to Australia. And in order to hire the new worker from Australia, I mean the Australian worker, they need to hire the Australian worker. So the cost of car production will be increased and reach the new equilibrium here. So at this new equilibrium, the number of cars that Toyota can produce is drop a lot. Okay, the number of cars drop a lot because they have to hire more expensive labor from Australia. Okay, now this is the situation. Okay, the situation is like this. Oh, okay, everyone, I will continue now. Okay, the cost increased from 24,000 to 3,000, 33,000. And don't forget that this cost increase will pay to Australian labor or capitals. Okay, this cost increase because of they pay some money to labor or capital in Australia. Okay, so it's increased. Now let me draw the welfare. At the first step, at the free trade, no policy here. At the free trade, the welfare of the country will count only the consumer surplus, right? So this is the welfare of the countries at the free trade. And this welfare will count only the consumer surplus because there are no supply curve in Australia. So there are no producer surplus here, only consumer surplus here. And then the country use domestic content policy. So it means the price move up to 24 to 33,000. So the consumer surplus drop down to this area. Correct? Drop down to this area. So it means area A and area B is consumption loss in the country, correct? A and B is consumption loss. Okay, let's look at area B, everyone. At area B, area A is consumption loss, right? But if you look at the explanation in the left-hand side, Japanese firm pay the labor and pay the rent to the capitals. They pay the wage to labor and pay the rent to capital. So it means area A, it turned out to be the input gain. So area, nothing happened because input product gain here. Area A, input input production or domestic firm that sell those input gain here, right? So area A is no longer database loss, no longer consumption loss anymore, consumer surplus loss. So area A, nothing happened, it's neutral. But look at area B. Area B is consumer loss, right? Look at here. Toyota, before that, they produced 500 and now they produce only 300. So it means consumption real loss. So area B is the real loss here. So area B is real dead weight loss. Okay, area B is the real dead weight loss now. So I make the summarize here already. So at the end, dead weight loss is area B. Okay, producer surplus gain of Japan is transferred to input seller of Australia. So it means that the input seller or domestic input seller, they gain from this policy. Okay, so but at the end, when the country use this policy, they still face with the dead weight loss equal to area B. Okay, area B. Okay, now we go to the fifth case. Maybe I stop here first. Okay, I think only 2 cases per class is enough for you. Okay, otherwise you will brain out. Okay, your brain is not will be heat, I think. Okay, so let me stop at the fourth case. Okay, so I will continue the fifth case. I will continue the fifth case on next week.